Raw, real, and just a little dangerous. This is Feral.
Have you ever met someone indirectly at first and then you just across a crowded room, it sounds like South Pacific, but across a crowded room, you see someone's energy and you're just like, that person is terrifying and I need to know them. Never has there been maybe a truer example of that than the speaker dinner for Bree Seeley's conference, Success Becomes Me, just this past year. When we were sitting at the speaker dinner and kitty corner across from me and a few seats down was Audrey. And I kept trying to talk to the friends I came in with and was sitting with, but Audrey kept saying this stuff that just kept made me being like, shut up. Shut up. I'm talking to the one with the fabulous hair. Shut up. And so I literally went up to her after and I'm like, you scare me and you're amazing and we need to be friends. And honestly, that has so much value because Audrey is not only a terrifyingly glorious and gloriously terrifying human, which you will witness, but they are also such a generous person and a mother and a fiery Latina and so much more. But she's also the creator of Whole Soul Finance. And for me, I'm going to be totally honest with y'all. Up to and including hosting this event, Money and I don't always feel like we're on the same page. On a good day, on a good economy, when like Elon's not taking my library holds away or killing BBS, whatever. But I know right now there's a whole lot of people pretending like everything is hunky-dory in the economy and hunky-dory in the finance world. And that's not what we're doing. We are going to say today that some things are better than you think you are. And I'm going to let Audrey talk about that because she's the expert. However, I brought Audrey out here to say the quiet parts out loud. Both the stuff that we're scared to say, but also the stuff that we need to hear because maybe it's not so scary after all. And if it is that scary, like we said at the very beginning of the day, we still got to be scrappy and rise against it. So Audrey Godwin, creator of Whole Soul Finance, my favorite fiery queen. Should I be terrified of the economy or not?
Well, that's your choice. How dysregulated do you want to be today? It's your choice, right? I'm not saying to not move with wisdom and discernment. What I'm saying is if everything was really that terrible, you would have more people in upper middle class crying uncle, right? There are things like our view of what's happened is so skewed by the media we take in. Right. So not to say that, tariffs aren't necessarily a good thing because at the end of the day, we as the consumers pay more for it. Right. The employers who want to take good care of their employees from the mom and pop shop all the way to, bigger companies have to figure out, well, do I lay people off or do I just postpone raises and bonuses? Because we need to get materials in. We need to acquire the things that are now getting tariffed that should not be, right? The other piece is if we think about the economy, I'm kind of old. I am pre-internet old. So we had the 2000 bubble, right? World was coming to an end. It was terrible, blah, blah, blah. 2008, we had the housing bubble. Now, there are people that haven't rebounded from that. And the ones that haven't probably should have never bought a house in the first place.
Yeah.
Just to be clear and honest, right? Not everybody who bought a house did so in such a way that they could sustain it.
Which is how the bubble happened. Everybody's like, I can get a $16 billion mansion for $1. It's like those shows you see now, those HGTV shows where they're like, I am an urban botanist. My budget is $14 billion. Like, whoa, okay. Are you sure that's really your budget? Calm down. But yeah, it popped because we were not being super long thinking or responsible, to your point.
Well, it's not even... we definitely don't think long, right? Because, back in the day, you had CEOs that became CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that actually brought something to the table. Now you have CEOs that are manipulating profits and earnings and having these really huge golden parachute contracts that literally cripple cash flow for companies because if you get fired, the board says you're gone, you still got to pay my contract. Mm-hmm. Dude, you did nothing. And yet, right? So we're hopping. The average person can't do that. And the other piece is, I think this is clearly my opinion, and I have lots of them.
Love them. Bring them all.
Is that when we think about stewarding finance, like it's super not sexy. It's super not sexy. But what I know to be true is that if I focus on where my values are at this point in my life, what my vision is 10 years from now, and that seems like a long time. But if you think about the last 10 years of your life, you probably got more done in 10 years than you did in a single year of those 10 years. Right? So, and we live in a country that's always go big and go home, which is why a lot of us stay dysregulated. Because it's like, well, if I can't write $1 million check, you could give $5 to your favorite charity a month. Like you can give up one coffee, you can give up one sandwich a month if you really wanted to do that, right? We don't think like builders and farmers, we think like robber baron. And we're trained to think that way, right? So it's like, if we can't maximize profit to the most, it's like, okay, but how much profit is enough? And if you can't figure out what that number is, then the issue isn't how much profit, it's what are you trying to fill with the cash flow and profit from your life.
I'm stunned by this thing that you just said. We don't think like builders and farmers. We think like robber barons, and that we were trained that way, right? Like we've talked a lot today about the fact that like nobody goes in, no one that would come to this event goes into life to being a douchebag. No one's like, yay, let me Glenn, Larry, again, Ross, and coffee for closers all of my friendships away. Like nobody's saying that. But yet we have been trained to think in this capitalistic, not all good, not all bad, but very like take oriented, one transaction at a time oriented way, where you're like, no, we used to think pre-industrial, we used to think and we used to live for thousands upon thousands of years as builders, as farmers, and that's how economy survived and shaped. So how do we get back to that mentality? How do we get back to builder farmer?
That's a great question, right? Because capitalism wasn't always predatory. It wasn't always predatory. We now live in predatory capitalism, right? And I think most of us come from communities that used to value community. And then we become these very American individuals who is like, I can do this all by myself. So, one of the phrases that literally makes me want to throat punch somebody is, I'm a self-made millionaire. No, you're not. Because if you have employees or contractors or people working with you in your business, you didn't do all that stuff by yourself. Because if you had, you would have died. You'd have had an aneurysm, a widow-making heart attack, something, right? So let's not kid ourselves that we deceive ourselves by believing it's like, oh, this is the way it is. It's like, nope. What we take in is we watch all of these people who money mirrors and reflects who they already are. So when you see all this terrible stuff happening, it's like, okay, so, for me, I have a bit of compassion. I go, they have a miserable life. Because when you say things out loud and it's like, oh, but it's just for shock and awe. Well, if you have to do that, then think about the state of your soul. Does it look like it's flourishing, or does it look like the crypt keeper? And the more miserable things come out of your face, I guarantee you are inside looking like the crypt keeper. Bottom line, that's what it is.
Dorian Gray effect. We're like, money looks great on the outside, accounts look fine from the get-go. Inside, you're like, why am I a husk? Why?
Right? I mean, and at the end of the day, we talk about wanting to build wealth and to do all these things, but the things we consume plant in our subconscious that, oh my gosh, if I become a good steward, right, then am I going to turn into that miserable cow? Well, no. If you know who you are, you know what you value. Now, your values change all throughout your life, right? Because at 61, a couple of my values have been the same throughout my life, but other values change, right? They're not the same as they were when I was 40, definitely not the same as when I was 20. But those are important. And then to be honest about what's the actual priority right now, right? Is it, I still want to get my $10 eggs. Now, everybody jokes about the price of eggs, but years ago, when I was looking to get cleaner food, it wasn't about let me just go to Whole Foods and give them my entire paycheck, right? Whole paycheck. It was, no, let's go get those pasture raised, free range eggs. At the time, many years ago, they were like $6, $7 a dozen, maybe 8, 9 for 18. Cool. And then it was like, okay, and I don't eat red meat that often. It was grass fed and grass finished. Okay, a little more spendy, but I'm also not eating 50 pounds of meat every month, right? So you adjust your budgeting based on what you say is absolutely a priority and it is anchored in your values. But what it takes is for you to be honest and acknowledge where you're actually at, right?
Yeah.
So then it doesn't matter, if Nero is fiddling while Rome is burning, because at the end of the day, is Nero coming to your house? No, because he's not paying your bills. He's not taking care of you. It's what are you going to do? And then how are you going to stand in the midst of that and go, here's what's actually possible when you don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
Or you can drink different Kool-Aid.
Drink your own. Drink whatever you want.
Kool-Aid.
Drink this non-branded. Did not sponsor this. No, but I just, here's what I historically do, and because it's part of the reason how we wound up having this conversation in this very festival. I, as a highly empathic person, and a person who has had good success and really, really big business droughts more times each than I can count in cycle and in succession, I fall into feast and famine. And yet I have never learned to play the longer game. And when I bring this stuff up to you and I'm like, and I don't know where this is going to go. And I don't know where this is going to go. And I like flail and I'm like, the stock market and Elon and I don't know what my pipeline and da-da-da. You're like, why are you not thinking like a business? And why are you not playing a larger game? So I told y'all she's terrifying. Put your seatbelts on. Audrey, no holds barred. I need you to tell me some of the stuff you've told me before about how I'm not actually acting like a business. I'm acting like a grown-up freelancer, and I need to learn how to play a longer game.
Wow, that's quite the mouthful.
Well, I mean, otherwise the chat's just going to blow up about how incredible you look for 61. And I'm like, duh, she's gorgeous. She's even more so in public. But that's not why we're here today.
Look, so we'll talk about skincare. I barely wash my face. I mean, like seriously, I use these little wipes at the end of the day. I wash my face with whatever I put on my body in the shower. So
you heard it here first, folks. She bathes.
I bathe. And I actually use a washcloth and I don't let the soap just run down my legs. I actually scrub all the parts.
I freaking love it.
But at the end of the day, right? It's finding your joy and getting healed and whole.
Healed and whole skincare.
Look.
And organic.
In my world, like this is what Jesus and therapy does.
Now that we know Amazing Jeans, Jesus therapy and a washcloth. Write that down, everybody. You heard it here first. All right. But like I'm acting like a bad, naughty teenager with a lawn cutting business, and I'm not planning for tomorrow, and I'm racking up all this debt by over investing, and I'm doing all this dumb shit. Yell at me. Yell at me for their benefit.
I'm not yelling at anybody because at the end of the day, we only do. So here's the thing. You have to decide what your business is. Right? I've had a client who, she's been in the feast or famine mode and, I got all these freelance, like I have a team. Like, okay, are you paying payroll? Oh, they're contractors. I said, here's the thing. It's easy to say you have a team when everybody's a contractor because when things get tight, you can cut down their hours. You move differently when you are responsible for somebody's payroll, right? That's the end of it. And I'm not saying everybody has to have a business where everybody is on payroll. But what I'm saying is that you have to have some idea of what are your personal values are now going to be the DNA that creates the culture of this company, right? So if freedom is your value, as I was talking with a client, I don't know, a few months ago, and she was mad at me for a while. Because I said, well, if freedom is your value, then we live out the stories we most believe. So if you want to come and go as you please and so that's why working a 9 to 5 is not for you, because you think freedom is I do what I want, when I want, how I want to do it, regardless of the consequences. Well, that's not freedom, because true freedom has boundaries, right? It can say no. It can say, I'm going to be a 2-year-old and have a tantrum right now, and then tomorrow I'll be 25. And maybe the day after that, I'll reach for 30, right? Really what it comes down to in running a business is what do you want this business to do? If you want to be a freelancer, great. Let's be smart about your feast or famine. Make sure that you have sort of a fiscal plan, meaning if you know you're in a business where it's a feast or famine, then make sure you have more than enough covering the famine months. Get in the habit of putting money to the side. And I'm not saying, okay, let's do the snowball effect and pay down all your debt and all that. It's like, figure out the rhythm and cadence, decide how you want to be. And debt is not always bad. It's only bad if you continue to put on either credit cards or a line of credit, these things, these courses, these masterminds you keep going to, but you literally haven't moved your business forward, and you are at capacity mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually that you can't do anything with your business because you're too busy trying to be in community as opposed to moving your behind to get your business going.
So if you want to be a freelancer, then be a freelancer. Like, there are so many times where I didn't want to be a freelancer. So I didn't operate like a freelancer. So I operated like an agency, even though I was a freelancer. So I was spending money in my business.
Yes.
Like an agency owner. I was spending money like a much bigger company, but I was behaving and filling my pipeline as a freelancer. And so what happened was I overinvested. I wound up super broke. And that's what caused the feast and famine. Is once I delivered so well, I'm being mocked in the chat for being over delivering. Surprise, surprise, all of you. But, once I got to that point of delivery and the pipeline was full because I am just one provider, showing up like a freelancer who was acting like an agency all along, an agency would have had other people prospecting.
Absolutely. Yeah, you would have had your freelance bench locked and loaded. And so you're like, hey, I need people to do X, Y, and Z, because at the end of the day, you're the leader of this company. So that means your job is to get sales, to do business development, make sure that pipeline is full. And then you start, like, the best investment that anybody can make is get you an executive assistant. Like, that is, and I'm not talking the VA type. I'm talking someone that can come where you're at, can know how you move, understand all those things. Because back in the day, before I got my degree, I was an executive assistant. And let me tell you, once you can move and figure out what they need, then you have to learn the person you got, and you have to be willing to not be a control freak. Because at the end of the day, if you have good systems in place, a business is systems. It's not people, it's systems. And if you have really good systems, then you can plug and play the people who are going to literally be rock stars because they're bringing their genius to your system. And they can be able to tell you, hey, I love how you did this, but it would be more effective if you did it this way. Great. Then let's fix that so you can be a rock star and I can be a rock star. We can do this together. We're going to make beautiful music together.
I love that what you said, though, about business systems. Like earlier today, we heard from Chris DeGrasso about burnout. And it's like, if you don't have enough people or the right people in the right seats, it's going to lead to burnout. And that's a breakdown of a system. And so for you to say business systems, it's to say things like finance. Some people think it's a game. It's a formula. It's math, right? And so one of the things I love about you specifically and about whole soul finance specifically is that whole soul means whole soul, where we're merging the math and the soul, whatever your definition of soul is, as Jenna Rezia would say, God Bob Cupcake, right? But how do we, while we're looking at ourselves differently, while we're asking ourselves these amazing questions, what do I want this business to do? How do I want to show up? What am I creating? What legacy am I leaving? And to use your own word, what am I stewarding? Oh, I love that.
And nobody likes to say the word steward because, again, we're Americans, so we want to own everything. It's like, yeah, but if you are a good manager, a good steward, then guess what? You're planting seeds all along the way. You're building something that other people want to help you, and they see themselves in your vision. right? So
Yeah.
if you want to build a better business, even if it's you and two other people, right? It's where do you see this, when this business is fully developed, what's happening in the business, right? And I'm not saying you have to have everything sketched out, but it's the fact that it's like, do you want to be doing all the day-to-day work, or do you want to be selling and marketing and delegating tasks?
Yes.
Right? Some of this can be automated with technology, but sometimes you need another person, another human to interact with, so that you can go together further and faster.
That's why we have investment advisors. Y'all know I would just spend all my money on the dumbest stuff imaginable historically. I'm working on it.
But here's the thing, right? It becomes, a business owner should be doing, participating in revenue generating activities. Some of that is learning a new skill. Some of that is can be hiring somebody to do your social media posting, to engage in a way, or to give you a marketing strategy. Going to TikTok and saying, I'm just going to sell on TikTok shop is not a strategy. That's a tactic. Because if you don't really know where you want to be at the end of the day, and I'm not talking revenue numbers, right? Because that's easy math, right? Ask any CPA. Oh, what are you selling? Oh, it's $1,000 a month. Great. You just need 4 packages or 10 packages and that's not how it works. You have to understand the story, because the drivers of revenue is marketing and sales. So if you have no idea what's happening there and how to spend wisely, right? Because sometimes you have to spend the ad money, but sometimes spending $10,000 a month on an ad when you have no clear direction where you're going, then all y'all going off the side of the cliff together.
And I don't want to go off the cliff.
No, we don't want you to go off the cliff.
Especially if it's avoidable.
It's always avoidable. Here's the thing, is my wish and hope for everybody, right? Because the reason wholesale finance came about, this is work that I've done one-on-one with people for 20 years, right? What it comes down to is, as we are doing our deepest work, it's you heal your soul, then fix your finances. Everybody wants to math themselves to death, and they're disconnected and compartmentalized for safety and survival. Nobody says, what's your vision of your life or your business when it's thriving? We all know how to survive, but nobody encourages you to dream about what does it look like to thrive. And for some people, thriving is all of my bills are on auto pay and I never have to worry I'm going to be overdrawn. And some people think, well, that's not a big deal. But for some people it is, even in business. What does it really look like to thrive? And what are you willing to acknowledge that you have to shift or reallocate or get rid of in order to thrive? And I'm not talking sacrifice like we're going to eat, salty top ramen and increase our blood pressure, right? So that we can, do all the crazy stuff. It's how can we do this in a way that is honoring who I am being, who I am becoming, and using money as a tool and managing it well, because that's a skill. Because at the end of the day, to be truly wealthy, and the origins of that word wealthy was wellness. It had nothing to do with material riches. It had everything to do with your well-being. So what if your transition from surviving to thriving really makes you feel like you are whole, worthy, and wealthy and wise?
I freaking love that. I love that. So y'all, let's recalibrate the game we're playing. Let's do better stuff with that fear. Let's look at all of this differently. The incomparable Audrey Godwin, thank you so much for being with me today.
Loved it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh.
Raw, real, and just a little dangerous.